Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where people think it's okay to steal money from family with no consequences because, we're family. Guys, the stories today are spectacular, so I hope you enjoy them. Subscribe if you haven't, and with that all said, we're diving in. So I work at a famous chicken chain that's known for politeness. At my store, we offer free meals to police officers in uniform who eat in the restaurant. It was lunch rush, and we were short-staffed, so things were moving a little slower than usual. My coworker then greets this one customer and then asks for his order. The guy then promptly showed what an entitled idiot he was by berating her for having to wait in line for so long, and then he demanded his whole meal for free, pretty much throwing a tantrum. He did it so loudly that 3 officers that were there eating lunch heard him. My coworker was trying to calm him down, but that only made him more upset. The whole time, he was using foul language, saying we're all getting fired, etc., but it doesn't end there. Once he got his food, not for free, he decided to make a huge mess, throwing trash on the floor and telling us all to have fun cleaning it up. The guy then went to his car and starts throwing what seemed like an ocean of fast food wrappers and cigarette butts out of his car into the parking lot. Now, this is what caught the officer's attention, as he was clearly littering. At this point, all 3 officers went out and made him clean up his mess and wrote him a ticket. Where I live, littering carries a $500 fine. And if he contested it, the judge could tack on up to 60 hours of community service. So this guy ended up paying around $508 for his lunch. Guys, I love instant karma, and the guy totally deserved what he got. I used to work at a fast food restaurant, and let me tell you, some people suck. I remember this one time, this woman and her kids came in, and she literally throws her sandwich wrappers and garbage all over the floor. And she told her kids to do the same, since employees were paid to clean up after them. My mom has late-stage Alzheimer's, and she's been unable to manage her money, and needs around-the-clock care. It probably would be safer to put her into a nursing home, but she made us promise to only do that as a last resort. Thankfully, she had a lot of investments and savings from my dad before he passed, so we can get her a hired professional carer in her own home. My sister is the one who lives the closest, and she visits her often, so she handles my mom's finances. We give my sister $200 a month each, for her to run errands and help look after mom since we both live out of state. So a few days ago, my other sister calls me to tell me that there has been a lot of cash withdrawals recently on mom's card. I check, and there's nearly a year's worth of $300 to $400 withdrawn many times. We call my sister who's handling finances, and she's confused. She says she never takes out any cash. She only pays bills with a bank card and uses credit card for groceries, etc. She then freezes the bank card, and I take a red eye over. So long story short, we asked the bank where the ATM withdrawal happened. My sister looks shocked when she Googles the location and realizes that it's close to her son's school. We waited until the son got home and then asked him where he worked, and he said a local restaurant. We then said that we'd like to go with him to the restaurant to confirm he works there. And when he heard that, he got really panicked, and he said the management just changed, so they wouldn't know him. I then asked for his paycheck, and finally he gives up and admits that he doesn't have a job. My sister then asked him where the money for the new stuff he bought home comes from, and he admits that he just takes the bank card every so often to make cash withdrawals. I then ask him where he got the pin, and my sister confesses and says that she writes her pins on a sticky note so she doesn't forget them. I take the bank statements and calculate out that he owes $14,308. I told him he has to pay it back now, or I'm filing a police report on him for theft. And my sister begs me not to, saying that if he has anything on his record, he might not get into college. I told her I won't, if she pays it, but she says she's struggling and doesn't have the money as she's a single mother. I told her that isn't good enough, and she says that her son's only 16 and he doesn't know any better, and they all make mistakes. I told her they won't put a 16-year-old in jail, but he might do it again when he's older, so it's better to learn his lesson now. She then said that we can just take it out of whatever her son's inheritance would be from mom. And I yell at her that if mom was in a state to judge, that she would write him out of her will for this. I then call up my lawyer and ask what I should do. He suggests filing a police report, but not including my nephew's name just yet. I did just that, and my sister's screaming at me that I'm ruining her son's life by involving the police, and that he's only a kid. I'm not happy about it, but at 16, if he's got this entitled attitude of taking what he wants and stealing from his own grandma who looked after him when his mom was sick, I can't imagine what he's gonna do when he's older. So am I the a-hole? Guys, I am just speechless at this. OP is definitely not the a-hole in this situation for reporting her nephew. I mean, it sucks because it's family and it might cause some issues, but if they just brush it under the rug, it might lead him to be worse in the future. Now the crazy thing is, if OP and her sisters didn't catch the nephew when they did, who knows how much money he would have drained from that bank account. $14,000 is a crazy amount of money, especially for a 16-year-old. And for him to just take the bank card whenever he feels like it to take $300 to $400 at a time is friggin' theft. And hey, I don't know about you guys, but if my kids were working somewhere, I'd want to see some proof, right? Like, show me a friggin' pay stub or something. So this story happened in 2015. I was 18 and about to move out on my own. Prior to this, I had a savings account that my parents helped me set up. I'd been putting money into it any way I could for 3 years. Birthday money, odd jobs, part-time after-school jobs washing dishes, all that stuff. And I'd managed to get a few $1,000s into it. I'd been really wanting to move out because I have 2 little brothers that absolutely drive me up the wall. My parents loved making me the live-in babysitter whenever I wasn't working, which is why I used the excuse to work as much as I could. When the time came and I wanted to move out, my parents said they wanted me to stay because they needed my help. They were wanting me to start paying rent to help with bills, but I held my ground that I wanted to live on my own. I'd already paid the deposit and the first month's rent on the apartment without telling them, and by that point, I had a local full-time job, so I was set to move out after another month. So when they found that out, they freaked and told me to get out that day if I wanted to be on my own so bad. I then packed what I could and left to go to my aunt and uncle's house. It was a 4-mile ride with a bicycle that I had a small trailer hooked to. When I told my aunt and uncle what happened, they were very angry, and they took me in right away. A couple days later, I went to withdraw all the money from my account, and I saw that my bank account was empty. So my parents had come in the day prior and cleaned it all out. All the bank could do was give me a balance statement saying so. Because my parents were co-signers on the account, that meant they had access to the money too. And I was livid. I immediately told my aunt and uncle as soon as I could, and they were beyond angry too. Then my aunt got an idea, and she starts calling up other people in the family to tell them what my parents done. It wasn't long until my parents faced backlash. My other aunts and uncles, cousins, and grandparents were all furious, and they let my parents have it. Now, I don't know what kind of excuses my parents gave them, but it didn't work. The next time I saw my parents, they showed up to my aunt and uncle's house to yell at me. When they saw me, my mother throws money at me and called me an ungrateful brat for telling everybody. My aunt then said that it was her who told everybody, not me. I then looked at the money they'd thrown at me, and it was just some kid play money that my brothers had. I then asked them where the real money was, and my parents said they'd already used it to pay off a credit card. I said to them that I wanted the money they stole back, for real, but they refused. They said it was their right to take it since they opened the account for me, and I still have a job. My expenses at the moment were fine because my next paycheck was deposited in a new account, and I was able to save until the apartment was ready. My parents took a lot of heat from my aunt and uncle until they left. My cousin used to also babysit for my parents when I was busy, and she not only refused to do so again after what they did, but she told me that she put out the word to the other babysitters on social media to avoid my parents because they were thieves. By the time I was living in my apartment, my parents finally couldn't take the social stigma anymore, and they met me to compromise. They told me they couldn't afford to pay me back all at once, and they asked for a payment plan. I had the exact number of the amount they'd stolen, and I said I wanted it all back. They actually tried to haggle me down to half the total, but I refused anything but the full amount. They reluctantly agreed and gave me $200 a month in cash for 2 years before it was all paid back. Now I barely ever see my parents, let alone speak to them. And they clearly still blame me for what happened too, because their reputation in the family never recovered, but I don't care. They were thieves that paid the piper. Guys, it is just so ridiculous that the parents got mad at OP and blame OP for ruining their social reputation. Like, did OP make them empty the bank account which had over $2,000 in it? Like, I've read a lot of stories where parents steal from their kids, and I personally think that's such a crap thing to do. I mean, stealing from anybody is a crap thing to do, but for a parent to empty their own kid's bank account? Like, come on. So this happened a couple of years ago, but it still just hurts. So my dad and I have never really seen eye to eye. My dad grew up with no sisters and an awful mother figure, and none of his friends have daughters, only sons. I don't blame him for struggling to raise a girl when he had absolutely no reference point, but he didn't need to show blatant favoritism towards my brother. I've always been the black sheep, a little. My parents and younger brother have always been this nice little trio. My brother is a mama's boy, but dad dotes on him regardless. He's 4 years younger than me. I'm 18 years old and he's 14. So here's the actual story. My brother and I are very musical. I play a multitude of instruments and he just plays saxophone. He's good though. He always has been. He suffered classic younger sibling syndrome. We were in a much better financial position when I began playing clarinet that I got a really good beginner/intermediate model that I still play today. When he started 4 years later, things had gotten tight, so he had to rent from the local concert band and it wasn't great. Originally, it was fine because my parents didn't want to invest in something that he might not commit to, but he did and he loved it. At this point, I was 15. I was working for 2 years at a local sports club, earning less than minimum wage because I was underage, but working my butt off and saving a pretty hefty percentage of my income. My father, who felt responsible for my job since he knew the owner, decided he was entitled to my savings, about $500 at the time. His exact words were, "We could use your savings to buy your brother a better saxophone." And boy, did that crush me. First of all, you can't get a better saxophone than the one he has for only $500. Secondly, what kind of father asks one child to practically give up 2 years of work for another? It made me feel like he had more pride or hope for his son, that his daughter's savings should contribute towards it, even though at the time I was saving for a student-level clarinet and he knew that. He never even offered to pay the money back or anything. And thankfully, after I asked Mom what she thought of it, she lost her mind and it was never brought up again. He's asked for my savings since then, and I've said no. I can't wait to move out next year. So long backstory short, I've lived with my father, well, forever. He then got married to a woman named Patricia for a green card in about 2008. It was always for the green card. I know that it's wrong, blah blah blah. She needed the money since she'd been fired and her daughter was having health problems. So my father made her an employee, so she'd make the minimum amount to sponsor him, which was $500 a week. She did nothing. She lived in Alabama while we lived in Georgia. He then got his green card and he continued to pay for her because he was an idiot and he didn't get a prenup. I lived with him and worked with him, so I saw and dealt with him every day. We were close. I had my first child in August 2019, his only grandchild. He was diagnosed with cancer in August of 2019 too. I helped him through all the medical stuff. I took over as much of the business as I could, and I was his home care provider when he was in hospice, and he died in June. When he was diagnosed, he made a will saying absolutely nothing was to go to his wife. Everything went to me or my son. The house was put into my name with a quitclaim deed, and the cars were all transferred. His and her relationship consisted of her literally texting him throughout the week asking for more money. The text would be like, "Hubby, I need more money. Please deposit." Or, "My love, I need more money. I have bills." Or, "Husband, I need you to pay my taxes now." Now this was constant. My father was never rich, and his company was small, and he still had bad seasons. He didn't even tell her when he had a heart attack in 2018. He didn't tell her when I was pregnant. Didn't tell her when he was diagnosed with cancer until a month before he died. He then called her begging for help because he felt like a burden to me, and he figured that since he was paying her, she could at least help. She never showed. In Georgia, a wife is entitled to 1 year's support, so I told her in the middle of COVID that I was dropping her money to $300 a week. I didn't tell her my father had died a month before. I did tell her myself and 2 employees had to take pay cuts because of COVID, which was the truth. The very next day, she shows up at my house and she just walks in. She was there with her mom. They both yell at me, and she made a big deal about wanting to meet her grandson, my son, and how much her and my father loved each other. She then left and I thought it was over. I was going to continue to pay her $300 and nothing else. And then the threat started. She starts messaging me how dare I lied to her, how dare I cremate my father without her approval, and that I need to pay her more money because that's what he would have wanted. She also said that she was going to come to the house and take what belonged to her, like his ashes and all of his personal belongings. And I told her to F off. A couple days passed and I went to visit a friend 2 hours away on a Saturday. She then shows up at my work with her mom demanding that I meet her there right now to give her all the stuff, including my father's laptops, phones, and his ashes. She then threatened to break in, call the cops on me, everything. I was literally in tears on the phone with my immigration lawyer, the probate lawyer, and 911. The 2 eventually left. They called me on the phone saying that I was a bitch and they were gonna get me. So drama happens and I hear nothing from them. I've been paying the $300 a week. She then texted me today when I was gonna pay her taxes. I told her never. She then told me it was my job to pay them, and that's what my father would have wanted because he loved her. I told her all I had to do, according to law and will, was pay her 1 year of support, which I was doing since the day he died. She then flipped out and called me a liar, telling me how much my father loved her and that he'd never want this to happen to her. Like, the woman expected me to continue paying for everything until when? Until she died? And that's entitlement. So OP needs to be ready for the entitlement explosion when that woman stops getting her money. Like, have the lawyers ready because that woman is absolutely going to lose it. Clearly, she only saw OP's dad as an ATM and nothing else. She was also being super manipulative, saying that's what your dad would have wanted. Really? Is that why you weren't in the will? So, a little background. I work at a AAA gaming company, and we had a booth at a convention for the first look at a game. The line was about 4 hours long, and you got to play the game for 10 minutes. Now, personally, I don't think that was worth the wait. We did let press cut the line if you had an appointment with us, or if you worked for a notable company like Kotaku or IGN. Lots of people had press passes for ridiculous things, like mymomsbasementgamereview.com. It was ridiculously easy to get a press pass at this convention, so we had to be diligent. Anyways, there's a break in the line, and this guy and his son tries to sneakily stand in the break. Now, luckily, people at the convention are line snobs because they've been waiting forever, and they grab my attention, and I walk up to him. I say to the man, the line ends back there, pointing to the long line. The man then says to me, we don't have time to wait all the way back there. Besides, my son is a game reviewer. He then shows me his press pass, and I take a look, and it looks like his son is a YouTuber. I then look up his channel, and he's got like 500 subscribers. I then say to him, look, I'm sorry, we can't make exceptions for you. Please go to the back of the line. The dad's not listening. He says, listen, I'm very good friends with the CEO of the company. I can just make one call and get you fired. I tell him, okay, go ahead. I then watch him fumble with his phone and make a fake phone call. The guy literally dials a phone number and he puts the phone up to his face. He then realizes that he's not faking it really well, and he says to me, oh, he didn't pick up. Let me talk to your manager. I then tell him, sure. Now, I do want to note that we've had a lot of entitled people during the convention, so it was decided that when people ask for a manager, we would bring out my 6'4" intimidating looking coworker. My coworker comes, and the dad continues to explain how his son's a famous YouTuber, and he would like to be reviewing the game, and we weren't making a good first impression. It was at this point, his kid chimes in that he could make or break the game. My coworker laughs in his face and says, yeah, I'm sure you could ruin us. Now get to the back of the line before I call security and kick you out. Before they leave, the kid takes out his camera and points it at me and my manager. His dad then looks at our name tags and says, good luck ever working in this industry again after we make a video of how terribly we're treated here. So 3 years later, I'm still working in games. I have no idea if the entitled son has any more subscribers though. Guys, I love how entitled some influencers are. I have a few hundred people who follow me, so you have to do what I say because I'm better than everybody else. Like, with that entitled mentality, and the dad who's clearly adding fuel to the fire, I'm afraid of what the kid's gonna grow up to be like. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the stories today. If you did, give it a thumbs up. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, OP's uncle teaches us speeding idiots a lesson that he'll never forget. Check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.